Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 most expensive board games that are in the SideGame library. Now, I do want to mention straight off the bat that this is a Patreon video, so this was voted on by Patreons on our top 10 list polls. So if you want to have a say in any of the future videos that are going to be on the channel, make sure that you are subscribed to our Patreon here. Any amount of money, $1 minimum, so would really appreciate the support. But that being said, this was one of the voted on topics. Now, another quick caveat before we start this list is I will not be including games that are not actually in the library right now. So we've gone ahead and backed a lot of games on Kickstarters. For example, Mythic Battles Ragnarok has about $800 for this core pledge for the two base games. That's not in the library yet, so we're not going to count it on this list. So these are things that are actually in the library right now. You can come and play. The next thing that we're not going to talk about are games that are collector's editions. So, for example, this Ticket to Ride edition, it's not really sure what the current price for this thing is. We got it when it was like 80 bucks, so that was a while ago. But right now the price kind of varies, so not really sure exactly. So I went ahead and disqualified all the collector's editions versions for this list. And the last thing we're not covering are games that I paid way too much for, so a premium for. These are games that were essentially out of print when they were released, or really hard to get. You couldn't buy them at retail, things like that. So, for example, I bought Street Masters Aftershock with like everything for way more than I should have. So we're not going to go ahead and count that on this list either. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the list with number 10, which is going to be Aeon's End. Aeon's End has you playing as breach mages. So you are characters with incredible power that are using magic in order to defeat these giant nemesis monsters. So you're going to have characters with different spells and gems you'll be using to buy cards from this central market, and ultimately you're trying to defeat this large boss. My favorite part of this game is the interesting bosses themselves. I think they're very cool, very unique, and I love how they scale as the game plays. So solid deck builder here, but this one, I'm going to have this kind of in the format of a guessing game. Any guesses on the price on this one? The price on this one currently is about $480. So this includes all of the expansion content, but we are not counting sleeves because sleeves are a whole nother beast. So didn't really want to calculate all that, but for the game and all the expansions, currently it's about $480 that we've spent on this game. Now, generally, we're going to get these through the Kickstarter, but to get them aftermarket, you can get them from Miniature Market, you can get them from Amazon, and they have lots of different options on Amazon. You can get them pretty decently priced here. So that'd be my recommendation if you're looking to pick up this game. So that's my number 10, Aeon's End. My number 9 is going to be the game Midara, Unintentional Malum. So Midara is a fascinating world where there is a portal in between our world and this fantasy realm, and people are kind of transferring from the real world to this adventuring in this new world. So it's a very fascinating game, but it is a dungeon crawler at its heart. So this has you playing these characters and moving around, and my favorite part of this game is the action system. So in this game, you have SP, which are your stamina points, and you're going to be using them to activate your character, move around, attack, dodge, counter, and I really like how it's done. It's very clean, it makes sense, and it's easy to track how many actions your characters have. And you can obviously get a lot of cool actions and bonus SP, things like that, with your abilities. So I think it's fun, the system here, how the cards give you actions as well as the SP. So I really like that. Now, let's go ahead and make a guess here. Any ideas? This game, it's a pretty flat rate here. This is going to be $500 flat. So this is from a recent Kickstarter that did deliver this past summer, and it has been pretty fantastic so far. So this was the Into the Portal pledge, I believe. It includes all the content for Midara, including like the additional sculpts. But if you are looking to get this game now, you can actually go to the Succubus Publishing website here, where they have all sorts of things that you can get. Update packs, sleeves, you can get additional sculpts, art books, extra dice, the game itself, the promo pack. So it is all available here. And if this is something that you're interested in, I would recommend getting that base game first, since it is available, and jumping into it and see if you like it. So good game. We do have all the extra stuff for it, which is why that price has been bumped up. Up next is number 8, and this is going to be Marvel Champions. So Marvel Champions, the card game here, it's one of my favorite games ever. It's my favorite game, actually. I love this one. It's a fantastic solo, multiplayer, cooperative game. It is a blast. It has you taking control of multiple heroes and has you taking down all sorts of enemies in lots of different ways. So I really like the system here. I love that you just set up a scenario, fight, and then you're done. You can pack it away. And it does have campaign play if you are looking for that. But I love the flexibility and freedom, and just you can get in and get a game played and have a blast. So love that about Marvel Champions. My favorite part of this game has to be just the system itself. I love the characters, and I love how each character has their own like 15 special cards, and I love that about it. Those cards feel like that character, so it's done a great job in capturing what it feels like to be a superhero. Now this game in particular, I'll go ahead and have you give a guess here. This one is only going to grow in price because we are constantly buying the new stuff for this, and this one currently is $520 for the current content. At the time of this video, this is where it's at right now, and we'll see if it grows. I'm sure it will. It gets another like $15 or $30 added to it every month, so this is one that's going to keep on ticking, and it's a trend you'll probably notice. If you're looking to get these, you can pre-order them on Marvel Champions, the website here at Fantasy Flight. You can also get them from local retailers or online retailers like Miniature Market and Cool Stuff Inc., things like that. So the prices for the core game is $60, and you just need one of those to get started, see if you like it. That's where I would recommend you start on this one. The next game that we're going to talk about is Cloudspire. Cloudspire is a chip theory game production, so it is beautifully produced, amazing components, went to Kickstarter, and has had a second successful Kickstarter where they did a lot of revisions, but it has you playing as a race of these creatures that live in the air. And this race of creatures is basically going to be sending out minions and heroes in order to take down your opponent's fortress. So you're going to be doing that and trying to build up your base along the way. So it's a nice tension there. My favorite part of this game is the asymmetry. I love how each faction is completely different. I love the weird bonkers powers that they have, and I love how each one feels specifically different. Like the bugs have this cool evolve mechanic. The Nerora, the energy people, when they die, you just don't get them back. You have to put some effort into actually recovering units, so you have to be careful on what you choose for each round. Really fascinating. I really like this game. Oh man, the art's wonderful. So I love Cloudspire. I just love this theme as a whole. Now go ahead and guess on this one. Any ideas? Well, Cloudspire is going to run us about $520. So a lot of these games are very expensive for chip theory games. They're all self-published. They do a great job with everything being neoprene and really nice heavy-weighted chips, great dice, great organizers. But you can get all of these on their website. So on Chip Theory Games' website here, you can go ahead and grab all the Cloudspire stuff, including all the upgraded components, and they have a max shipping rate if you're shipping to the US of $10. So no worries on, how crazy is the shipping going to be. Really nice. Everything's here for it. And this is one that, once again, you could probably just get the core game and see if you like it. The next game we're going to talk about is Batman Gotham City Chronicles. So this is a large Kickstarter that is by Monolith, and the big thing here is you are either Batman or the villains, and it's your job to complete your side of the mission, whether it be to just stall out the game, to beat up the heroes enough. There's all sorts of choices here. There's multiple modes to play this game in. One of them is the adventure mode you see here, where you've got a team of 1 to 3 heroes versus a single villain that controls all of the bad guys on the board using this really cool command board system. And that's my favorite part of this game, is the command board system. You have this great tool that uses tiles that you're going to use to move characters around a board, and if you play the versus mode, the 1 versus 1 mode, this is going to have each player using a command board. So I really like that system. I like how you're able to manage and control, so you have some resource management with this. It's really fun. I really like this one. Now, the game itself, go ahead and take a guess. Once again, this one's a little pricey. This one goes up to the next 100 value. This is $680 for all of the Batman stuff. So this one originally fulfilled on a Kickstarter, and this is really the only way you're going to get it here. You can pledge for all the all-ins for the seasons if you do pledge, and the best way to get this one is to get it through the next Kickstarter. So there's going to be a Season 3 coming out soon that's going to have some updated rules, so it's easier to get into the game because the rulebook is not good. They're very aware of that. They have Paul Grogan on it, that he's going to redo the rulebook for them. But it's also going to include solo and cooperative rules, which I think is going to make this game played a heck of a lot more, and I'm really excited for that. So right now I really prefer the 2-player version, the 2 command boards, because it gets to use that system, but I'm excited to see what they do with the solo and co-op version of this. So that would be my recommendation here, is wait for the next Kickstarter, or you could probably find someone selling their copy of Season 1, because a lot of people didn't like this game. So that is one to check out. But this is one that I enjoy, one that I really like to teach. So that's my number 6, Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Number 5 is for the game Too Many Bones, another Chip Theory Games production. This is one that's a bit longer staying, so that's probably why it's a bit more expensive. There's more content for it, but this game has you playing as fantasy races, and your whole goal here is to defeat this tyrant by leveling up your character and kind of progressing through this journey. So I really enjoy this, and that's my favorite part of the game actually, is the leveling up system. So each character has this skill tree on their board essentially. The stars mean that you can get those abilities right away, otherwise you have to go from left to right. You're kind of moving up in your abilities here, and I really enjoy that. I like how each run you play through, it's going to be different. There's just crazy amounts of choices here, and each gear lock plays extremely differently through these tech trees. So pretty excited overall whenever I get a chance to play this, and it's a fun one. I really like this game. Now go ahead and guess prices here. Remember, it's that Chip Theory game style, so it is going to be on the more expensive side, and the price for this one is $695, and that's for everything. Now this game in particular you can once again find on the Chip Theory Games online store with that max shipping rate capped, but a lot of this stuff is actually sold out, particularly the really sought after characters, because each character has their own character pack. Now the best way to get this game is through the Kickstarter. You can generally find them at a decent price. You can get everything, which is awesome, and that would be my recommendation if you're trying to get everything. But if you want to just try this game out, get the core game. There's a lot of stuff in there, and if you are a little apprehensive about that, you can also just get Undertow. I do prefer the core game. It has more variations on the bad guys. It also has more characters. You can play with more players, so I would recommend that, but Undertow is also a good starting point if you are going to be playing solo or with just one other player. So those would be my recommendations for that, but that is number 5, Too Many Bones. Number 4 is going to be for the game Marvel Legendary. So a giant deck building game that's been out for quite a few years now, 2012, almost 10 years this game, which is wild to me because this is one of the games that I started playing first in the hobby. Now, that being said, been out for 10 years, still releasing expansion content, and that's where this game comes in. But what is Marvel Legendary? Well, this has you playing kind of like in Marvel Champions as superheroes, where you are going to be using a deck building system to buy cards, and your bad guys are going to move around the city, and you're going to use those cards to knock out those bad guys. So it's a very clean system. It makes sense. You move the villains along. You're trying to beat them up before the mastermind wins through its scheme condition. Now, my favorite part of this game has to be just the copious amounts of schemes. So the schemes here are just a lot of fun. Each one is going to offer a little bit of a rules change or something that the bad guy is doing that makes the game exciting or different. Some are much harder than others, and I really like the variance overall. It really flares up the game, and it's a blast. And a lot of times the schemes will be based on the set that you're taking them from. So I really like that. Great fun with Marvel Legendary. So go ahead and guess the price here. Any ideas? And here is the current price. We've spent about $710 on this game. Once again, none of this is counting sleeps, but this one in particular, we have just everything for it. And it's generally when the expansions come out, they're pretty easy to pay for, but after a while they do go out of print, so you got to be careful on that. It is harder to get some of these, and you can get lots of different forms of Marvel Legendary. So there are the small box expansions, which are pretty cheap, but then you have the larger boxes like Dark City or like the World War Hulk, but they offer a lot more content. So there's a lot of different choices to get when you're expanding this game, and there are so many different kinds of Legendary. If Marvel's not floating your boat, there's a James Bond one, X-Files, Alien, which has received a lot of high praise, so I would recommend you do check out this game. And once again, getting that core box and seeing if it's something for you, I think is definitely worth it. But if you do just want to try the system, you might go with the Alien Legendary just to see if you like the system as a whole, and then if you do really like it, you can kind of dabble in the other styles. So that's my number 4 Marvel Legendary. Now, number 3 most expensive game in the library is going to be Arkham Horror, the card game. So this is another living card game, just like Marvel Champions, where it's been consistently releasing content since 2016. And this has you playing as investigators kind of in the Cthulhu mythos here, trying to solve some sort of case. And this is a campaign-based game where you're going to have a character deck, and it's going to level up as you play based on the experience that you get as you play. So there's all sorts of cards in this game, and that's my favorite part of this game is how the cards are used. So not only are they your player cards, but they're also the way the game fights against you, and they also make up the board of the game. So the game itself actually is kind of spread out, and the cards are the locations, and you're going to be moving your character cards from place to place, interacting with your surroundings. So I really enjoy this. I love how this game kind of breaks the rules of a card game and really makes it a board game, and I love how it changes from game to game. It's a blast blast. I love the creativity involved and how different each campaign feels and what they're doing. So very excited to go to Antarctica soon with Arkham Horror, the card game. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and guess the price for this one. So this is an LCG. It's been going around about 3 years longer than Marvel Champions. This one's price currently is about $1,315. So this game is very pricey. Once again, that's if you have all the content for it, and there's a lot of supplemental content that you can get as well, and that includes things like books and promo cards and standalone scenarios. There's just lots of stuff that you can get for this game. In addition, you're going to want to buy additional copies of the core set. There are so many different things to get for this. There's even a new revised core set that's going to come that's going to hopefully reduce the cost and get people to jump into it. And a lot of this stuff does sell out pretty regularly, so you do want to check in the store here at Fantasy Flight Games for when they do restock. So there are so many different cycles, which are the campaigns, and so they just wrapped up the Innsmouth Conspiracy, and next up they have the Edge of the Earth. Now, the really cool thing they're changing with this format is instead of releasing the single deluxe expansion and then 6 bonus packs, they're going to be just releasing 2 deluxe boxes, one with all of the scenarios and one with all the player cards. So I really like this new system. It's just one big dump of everything at once, and that way you can enjoy it straight from the beginning. You're not having to hunt for those packs. I hope that'll be helpful. So my recommendation for you is actually not to just get the core set. I recommend you get the core set for the Chaos Tokens and bags, but I recommend that you actually start with the Dunwich Legacy. So Dunwich Legacy here is going to actually provide a campaign that's not ridiculous and short and just kind of convoluted as you see in the base game, but the Dunwich Legacy offers you scenarios that make sense, that are properly leveled, and that introduce some of those fun scenarios. So that's our number 3, Arkham Horror, the living card game. Number 2 is going to be another one of these card games. This is the Lord of the Rings card game, and this one is from 2011. So this is the oldest LCG that's out there for cooperative play that we have in the library, and this is Lord of the Rings, the card game. It's exactly what you imagine. Lord of the Rings, cooperative play. You're going to be taking your character cards, and you are going to bring in 3 heroes with you, having a deck that match the colors that those heroes provide, and you're going to be taking on scenario after scenario. Now, my favorite part of this game has to be the heroes themselves. I think it's really cool. Right off the bat, you get 3 cards that you always get to play with, and you can build your deck based on these heroes, and I think that's really fun. There's lots of choices in the heroes, and like I said, there's at least a decade of content here to dive into, and they just recently wrapped up this game. So they said that they were done printing content for it, but they are going to maybe revive it or do something different in the future. But right now, all of the stuff for this game is out, and so that is the cap on the price of this game as well. And any guesses on what the price for this is? Well, the price is going to be about $1,685 for all of the Lord of the Rings LCG content. This does include a lot of the promos and the extra scenario packs. Now, the one thing that we do not have in the library are the Nightmare scenario packs. So right now, this game, when we've played it, it's been definitely difficult enough, especially for people their first time kind of trying it out. So we haven't really felt a need to get the Nightmare scenarios. That may be something that we pick up down the line, and that will increase this number. But currently, we do not have the Nightmare packs in the library. We have all the scenarios, and they vary in difficulty as already. So we haven't really seen it necessary to get those. But if you have any interest in this game, you can get them from the Fantasy Flight Games website. They have all of the stuff here clearly laid out, so that way you can kind of get them either in release order. But if I were to recommend this game, I would recommend you definitely get the core set because you'll need it. But I also recommend that you get the initial expansion cycle. Well, not the initial cycle, but actually it's called the Dwarldolf cycle. So that's this one here. This is where you're going to be going into the Mines of Moria. And in here you have some really good player cards that are really going to help you with your initial deck building. So I recommend this if you're just getting into the game. That way you can actually have a fighting chance, because some of these scenarios are extremely difficult. So that's my recommendation, is to jump into the Dwarldolf cycle. But this game is pretty dang fantastic. It's very challenging, very fun, makes a great solo and cooperative game, awesome gameplay, and if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, this is a no-brainer. Now, number 1, I think that if you are in the board game area or zeitgeist at all, you'll probably already predict what this game is. It is huge, gigantic price tag, and if you back the original Kickstarter, you actually received a huge discount on it. I was not into gaming when that happened, so I missed it, But I am here to show you the most expensive game that's in our side game library. That is Kingdom Death Monster. So Kingdom Death Monster has you playing in this world as survivors. Your whole thing is to go hunting for creatures and bring back their body parts to your settlement in order to create gear, innovate for a better life, all sorts of crazy things. So this game features all sorts of crazy components. So the game itself comes with a whole bunch of monsters, their own personal AI decks, all sorts of terrain, giant showdown board, miniature assembly kits, so that way you can create your own pieces, and everything is extremely customizable. And that is probably my favorite part of this game outside of the monster fights is the customization. I love that each character it comes with pieces where you can really make them your own, and I really like that. So if you want to have a character with an axe, you can put an axe on that character. So I really like that there's a lot of creativity that goes into creating these models, and it makes it a little bit more fun and bearable, because I'm not a big fan of assembling miniatures, but I think this one, the fact that you get to customize it, makes it really, really fun and exciting. In addition, my other favorite thing of this game has to be the fights. So you're going to be actually taking out these creatures, and oh man, they behave so differently, and they have these wonderful AI decks that are going to have them doing all sorts of different attacks and combos, and oh, it's pretty scary when you're fighting a creature for the first time because you have no idea what it's going to do. They each have their own really interesting and unique behavior. So I love that. I love the hit location decks. When you punch them, crazy reactions can happen. Fantastic game. So go ahead and guess the price on this one. Oh man, we bought this one at retail value, so this one is pretty straightforward cost, and this game is going to run about $5,000. So priced everything out, $5,000. We were able to get majority of the expansions because a lot of them had been sold out at Gen Con, so we were able to get them there, but we did get the core game, just base value, and you can still get this stuff now. If you wanted to get a copy of this game, you can. So the base game is about $400, but we do have all of the gameplay content for the game, so that includes any of these model kits that are also going to include any of these model kits that include additional cards, any of these additional small models, all these large expansions for all the different monsters. There's so much for this game. We also have lots of the different colored dice. It's good to mark different player colors, but this game has a heck of a lot of content for it. And if you get into this, it could be a rabbit hole, but you definitely don't need to get everything right away. Once again, if you just get that base game, you are going to have so much content that you're going to have a blast with it. And if you want to liven up your game when you start a new session, you can always just get a single expansion, and that will add one new monster usually, and some of the larger ones will also add campaigns and new innovations and fun things like that. So I recommend that if you do like this game, go into those expansions, focus on these brown box expansions. They're going to have the most content and the most bang for your buck because you will be getting new monsters. But if you just want to give this game a try, I would recommend that base game or find somebody that has a copy of it. So once again, we do have all of these games in our library, so you're welcome to give them a try here. And that is my list. So that is the whole list of the top 10 most expensive board games in the side game library. Were any of these surprises to you? Did you get any of the prices correct? I'm really curious to know what you think. Any games that you think we need to add to our library that might fall on this list? Any games that you think, we missed maybe? I'd love to hear what you think. And maybe you can make some predictions on some of the Kickstarter games that we're bringing in, which games we'll be adding to this list soon. I'd love to hear what you think, and I'd love to hear what your most expensive games in your library are. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you again to all my Patreons, and thank you for suggesting this video. This is a great one to do, but thank you so much. Side Game Strong.